This is the Magna Carta, written by Stephen Langton. So, the Magna Carta was a legal document that was written by Stephen Langton, who was the Archbishop of Canterbury. It was written on June 15th of 1215 AD in medieval England, and the original location where the document was signed was in Runnymede, which was kind of an open meadow and neutral ground in Surrey, England. Um, there are actually multiple original copies of it that still survive. Um, they're housed in different areas around England. So the Magna Carta itself is a legal doctrine that essentially says the King of England is bound by the law just the same as the peasants or some of the lesser nobles are. It says that the king can't violate certain things that the law just holds to be true for everybody. And a lot of that idea that the rulers are subject to the laws themselves, it wasn't revolutionary even back then in 1215. You saw a lot of similar policies being put into constitutions and legal statutes across France, Hungary, Germany, all over the place back then. Um, and a lot of it is based in the study of Roman and canon law. One of the interesting things, however, is that English rulers were kind of unique insofar as they were a lot more oppressive and cruel because they had a vast empire that stretched all the way from Normandy to the Pyrenees, and that required kind of an iron hand in order to rule effectively in their eyes. So King John, who was the King of England at the time, he lost the Duchy of Normandy, which was a massive territory, a lot of wealth, a lot of power to be had from it. He lost it to the King of France in a war that ended in 1204, and this was kind of devastating to the throne and to the empire as a whole. Um, because there was a lot of revenue to be gained from taxation of the people who lived in Normandy. So as a response to losing this territory, King John enacted a bunch of taxes on his remaining citizens and ended up tripling his revenues over the next 10 years. So he collected a ton of money, and while he kind of, refilled the coffers of the kingdom, the average peasant was struggling more financially than they had in a long time. All of that was to fund a campaign to try and retake the Duchy of Normandy in 1214, about 10 years later, and that was a massive failure. And like we saw with the war the first time around in 1204, wars are expensive. They need money to fund them. He got a bunch of money, he failed the second war, and he lost all of his money. And that was such a massive failure that it actually led to a rebellion of the barons or the noblemen who held land across the English Empire. So the Magna Carta itself is now talked about as kind of the underpinning or the foundation of a lot of Anglo-American due process and common law. Um, the idea that everybody is equal under the law is straight out of the Magna Carta. Um, a lot of the original clauses actually of the 63 are just repealed these days because they're anachronistic. They just don't make any sense to have anymore. But even if they're repealed, a lot of the philosophical and legal foundation of them still holds true. For example, clause 39 and 40 are kind of the foundation of the Sixth Amendment, the right to a speedy trial of your peers. That comes straight out of those clauses of the Magna Carta. The Habeas Corpus Act, which was an English act that was passed in the 17th century, that's based on Magna Carta principles, and it's even still referenced today. For example, in Guantanamo Bay, the idea that people can't be held arbitrarily against their will for indefinite periods of time without being charged for something. So we have a long-lasting legal foundation which upon which the Magna Carta has had a lot of influence. These are some of the works cited, just some of the things that I've accessed in order to kind of get information about this.